that if you're early in your journey, don't be afraid of switching jobs. The right fit people would not end up applying to you. Even if, let's say, you're Google, the talent has become more and more specialized. Every startup founder finds it very difficult to hire tech talent. Tech is such an industry wherein there is always going to be a lot of demand for highly specialized people, and there is a lot of specialties there. So you can develop a lot of depth of experience later on. Initially, try on a few things, find out, okay, this is what I really love. Now I've figured it out. Then you can build out, okay, I'll stay in one company for a longer period, and then you would be rewarded for your skills as well. So when talent is more specialized, there's certain skill sets that you're looking after. And these are the sort of information which is not present anywhere else, right? And even if it is present, let's say something like LinkedIn references, it does not work because those are not trustworthy.
You had built a startup called Memer and you sold it to Sharechat. Welcome, Amit. Welcome to the V Show. It's a pleasure having you here on the show. Just for everyone to introduce, Amit is solving the biggest challenge for a tech founder, which is tech hiring, right? Every tech founder who starts a company or startup, he really faces this challenge, right, in different phases of their journey, be it the early founding tech team to a mid-scale thing and to even, further scale of the company. But you are building a solution around it, which is the LinkedIn 2.0 for tech hiring. So why don't you go ahead and tell us more about the LinkedIn 2.0, which you are building, and how it is actually helping founders and startups to, make the hiring process efficient.
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Weber, for having me. It's an honor being here. Talking about the startup that I'm building, that's called Weekday. Essentially, the problem that you mentioned, that every startup founder finds it very difficult to hire tech talent. And that's the broad problem statement that we are going after. In one line, what we do is we help companies find passive tech talent talent which has upfront reference checks. So one way in which I sort of like explain it to general layman, which is a little reductive and has few sort of tangents, but what we call ourselves to layman is like we are trying to be like Amazon of tech talent. But what it essentially means is that whenever you're, let's say, buying something or going to a restaurant, you look at the product, you look at what the product does. But one of the very important decision factors is actually reviews. And it's not that you have, like when you buy on Amazon, it's not that you buy a product, you have made the purchase, you're just about to make the purchase, and then you'll ask the seller, you'll ask other people, how exactly is this? How is this product? Does it do well? Does it function well, etc. So similarly, like typically what happens right now is that within, and we'll talk about specific in engineering, taking an example that whenever you, let's say you're hiring a software engineer, reference checks is something that you would do towards the very end,
Correct.
wherein you have already made up your mind. So you're not really looking out, like it's not a factor for you to actually make the hire influence that decision, unless there's something like very red flags. A lot of red flags sort of come in unless until that it's sort of like a routine process. And a lot of startups, a lot of companies actually don't even do that as well. So what we are trying to flip is that can we make it much more streamlined and like give upfront reference checks? And why it is important is because on the macro level, what we feel is that other recruitment companies or startups such as LinkedIn, they generally were built at a time when talent was abundant. Like so it was not so general model of how recruitment works is that you have a job post, candidates come and apply to that job post. And let's say you have a post, you have like a role requirement, which is, let's say, a backend engineer. You'll put a job post on like a job portal, you'll get hundreds of applicants, and then you will sift through these resumes and make a hire based on that. But what has happened over time is that talent has become more and more specialized. So when talent is more specialized, there's certain skill sets that you're looking after. In that case, what happens is that this inbound model of recruitment does not work. So the right fit people would not end up applying to you, even if, let's say, you are Google. So Google still has like a lot of people doing outbound, which outbound essentially means that recruiters who are writing messages to potential candidates. And that's how most of the hires actually end up happening, even for something as popular as Google. So that's the reason why we think that recruitment, the inbound model, the traditional LinkedIn model of recruitment does not work. And if you have to do it the other way, which is that there are a set of candidates available now, in order to make decisions for companies, that we are saying that companies will reach out to candidates, there has to be more data to those people rather than just their resumes. Which is essentially LinkedIn is. LinkedIn is a largest pool of database of resumes available. So if you want to actually hire via outbound process, wherein there's like a lot of passive candidates, which essentially means that they're not really looking out, but they would switch.
Be a strong fit.
Yeah. So if that is going to happen, you need a lot more data points. And if you need a lot more data points, how can we provide that via information that people already have in their heads, that, okay, this is the best person that worked with me earlier, a person like the best coder in my batch in college. And these are the sort of information which is not present anywhere else, right? And even if it is present, let's say something like LinkedIn references, it does not work because those are not trustworthy. So essential problems we're going after, that how can we build alternate data points to make outbound recruitment work? So there's a lot to unpack here, but that's essentially
so basically you're saying that now folks, like for example, at least the part of recruitment processes I have been, generally you reach out to a recruiter or you yourself are doing, and you have a short list or a pool of profiles, right? That profiles could have been generated by outbound or by some filters on LinkedIn and so on and so forth, right? But even on top of it, always you give a preference to, let's say, who has worked with you, who in college, in some other organization, or like your like friend circle, right? Someone close to your friends and someone who can basically give a strong reference to say that, okay, this is something which I could say confidently that this person gets shit done or whatever is good in XYZ. So that is generally missing from a process standpoint, because when you come with a pool of candidates, you look at them fresh based on their LinkedIn persona and so on, and if any mutual connection. But we are also basically trying to build more trust in the sense of that whole recruitment process. The idea is that if they'll fit with us or not, and if we have this layer where there is a strong reference coming in from someone, and you are able to, I'm sure, incentivize that, basically that structure will yield better candidates for a role.
Yeah.
Right?
And the biggest point here is, like, imagine like there is a pool of candidates that come. They also have upfront reviews with them. This particular person, like similar to how you buy on Amazon, right? Like the specific review will matter more. In as Amazon, there's like a number of reviews, like thousands of reviews that exist, but because this is one individual would not have been hired by those many companies, or would not have worked with these many individuals, so the number of reviews would be lesser. But it's essentially that. And the biggest challenge is that how do we make it trustworthy? Because if we are able to make that trustworthy, then what happens is, in this age-old method of recruitment, is that the value of, or the importance of resume becomes a little lesser. That, okay, I will only... So the reason why a lot of people end up hiring only from, let's say, IITs, or will only hire from a certain companies, is because there is no other proxy. Like, you can't trust any other way. And if you have only finite amount of time that you actually want to hire, and you have to close this position, and you want to do a reasonably good job at it, and be at least 80% sure that this person would be a good fit, you don't have any other options. You don't have any other data points.
Got it. Fair, yeah. I think a good way, because people trust people. So of course, if I have someone who can refer a strong set of their friends or colleagues, and really say that, okay, they are good at work, and you would get your role closed, or you would get a strong fit. So I would definitely prioritize that as a recruiter. But great, yeah. Tell me more about how is it going right now, because since the job market, of course, is impacted all over, right? Right from the metas of the world to even the smaller startups, everyone has become very conscious and very measurable in terms of the ROI of their teams and so on and so forth. So how does it impact you, and what are you like doing to improve your business focus?
So generally, like, since would not like, okay, so like early signs of recession hitting has, I think it's been around 1.5 years since that. And almost every firm within the recruitment industry has been hit, like their revenues would be hit like 50 to 75% since this slowdown and layoffs has have happened. So that's the general industry figure that has. So for us, what we currently work with around 100 companies. So the scale is it's a scale is enough to prove that okay, this what we're doing works, but it is not at a scale where macro factors would influence us as much as
we are shielded that.
So what it essentially means is that okay, if earlier, like so for example, like earlier it would not, like I would not have to even go to find companies where there's like there's no sales motion for getting companies, because that would happen any which ways and very organically, and we would have more companies than we could actually service. That has changed a bit. So now we need to actually go and acquire customers, figure out more scalable ways of how do we have more repeatable motions of how do we go about our sales process. So that has changed. But right now, and another factor here is in the recent 3 months or so, we're actually seeing an uptick now in terms of number of companies which are looking to hire people back. And another aspect by which we are specifically shielded is because we're still looking at like tech talent. So even though the number of openings that a company would have, an overall open number of openings has reduced, but the need for outbound or a platform like ours continues to exist, because even when there is like a lot of candidates available in the market, companies are still very choosy. That companies still have a very high bar, because generally tech talent tends to be workforce whose output is like non-linear, right? So you would want the best quality people. So therein we are still seeing that it's not that inbound would actually suffice for most roles, wherein there's just like candidates applying and you would have enough candidates to actually have that quality and that volume for you. So those are the factors that I think have sort of helped us. In terms of few other numbers around a scale, like how's it going? So we're like in terms of companies, we work with around 200 companies and around 1 lakh candidates who have like made a profile with us, which is basically been converted. So that's the general scale in which we operate, right?
1 lakh is the total volume, or is it like?
So 1 lakh is a volume that interacts with companies
per month, or in total?
So in total. So in total, that's the volume. We have around, like in terms of the overall pool of candidates available, which have been recommended and have been
went through any process or something.
Yeah. So that number would be around like for 12 lakhs. But like the people who have actively engaged with a specific company, have shown interest, even though if they are not shortlisted, but they actually want to get hired, that is 1 lakh.
That is great, yeah. And tell me more about this. These people are all like Indians, or you are I heard you were also having like US companies, etc. on your board. So are they hiring Indian engineers?
Yeah. So our main focus is global, specifically US startups, which are hiring remotely from India.
Okay, got it.
So that ensures that because we're going after like a very high, like a very premium sort of set of talent, for these set of companies, that is the talent that they're looking for. So which can build like world-class products.
And I feel a good USP here also is that the hiring company actually like doesn't bear any extra cost. They were eventually anyways paying to the recruiter what they were. I hope your payment would also be in the same magnitude, right? And but they get like more, I would say, trustworthy candidates and better candidates. So they would definitely, there's no reason which I can think for if the quality of candidates are improving, I would not want to hop on this. So, but good stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So we basically work on 2 models. One is that model you mentioned, which is like a recruiter sort of model, which basically more tailored towards smaller companies which don't have recruiters on their payroll and don't have the bandwidth to actually reach out to candidates, etc. So other is like a database sort of subscription product, which is fairly cheaper, but there you'll have to actually do shortlisting yourself, finding candidates, all that. So it's like a database access.
So it's like low confidence tier, or where you have not done a lot of vetting and you just say, okay, we'll expose this at a fraction of the cost, but you do the entire thing.
Yes.
Interesting. And which is the major revenue contributor?
So the major revenue contributor right now is the recruiter one, where we charge like a commission
per hire base.
Yeah, so that's the major one, because we started with that.
You had built a startup called Beamer and you sold it to Sharechat.
Yes.
Right. So tell me more about it, and then how did you actually ended up finding this problem statement of hiring and then doing YC and of course now scaling it. So
Yeah. So the earlier startup that I was doing, so it was called Memer, were trying to build like a creator focused product wherein like, which was content creation. Our hypothesis was that there is very little original content creation in India, and most of the platforms that were like even video platforms, something like even Facebook, etc., were more resharing. There's like video that is created and others are just resharing. So that was the idea. The only one which was doing well at that time was actually TikTok. So we were trying to be like a TikTok competitor.
okay.
And this was
You were making short videos? No?
Yeah. So these short videos, but these were essentially memes. So what happens with memes is that creation is much easier. So all you have to do is actually change the caption or just change the one person's photo, and the whole meaning of that video changes altogether. So we are trying to lower the bar for creation, that anyone and everyone with just like, you don't really need like dancing skills or like singing skills or any specific talent. If you have like just a witty take on something, you can create content. So that was the idea. And this was before TikTok was banned from India. So, and there were a lot of other like Chinese products as well in the similar space. So we scaled it to a decent number. Like the number that we were chasing there was day 30 retention, which compared to TikTok, we were not there yet. And like, so in the process of, so like generally our target was that we want to reach like 30% day 30 retention, and we were at around like 8, 9, 10% number, which basically, and that is how we had defined that our product market fit for a consumer company is going to be retention, no matter how much growth you have. If users are not retaining, that means you'll always be on the run to like acquire more users, etc. So that's how we had defined our product market fit there. And therein we found it fairly difficult to actually compete with TikTok and like build out that product. And then we were trying to raise funds, and that in that process we ended up talking to Sharechat founders and a bunch of others as well, to just figure out that, okay, how do we go about building, like competing with something like a giant as TikTok and like others who have done that successfully. We're trying to take advice from them. And in that process, what happened, so like one thing led to another, and then we ended up getting acquired by Sharechat. And it just so happened that after we got acquired, I think around 4 months later is when TikTok got banned in India. So like our major competitor sort of got removed, and that actually taught me a very big lesson that in order to create or unlock, you have to be in the game much longer. So when we got acquired, post that there was like some amount of time where we were within Sharechat, and then it essentially, and we went from like working at like 10 people working day and night for a particular mission, and like this is when trying to achieve that, and then going into something wherein like a lot of other things are sort of figured, and Sharechat was a much larger company, and by then also when we had joined, there were like more than around 500 people at the company. So still a fairly large organization in that sense. So then it sort of, and then we sort of, during that time, we had some time and thinking that, okay, what is it that we really want? And then we just reflected on that, okay, the lifestyle of being a startup founder is something that I actually enjoy. That even when things like there's nothing working, like even days when nothing is working, it's just that highs and lows of being a startup founder is something that much better than just having that, okay, it's very predictable what my next day is going to be, my next challenges are very predictable. So just that lifestyle is something that we realize, okay, that is something that I actually want to do. And on top of that, so this was like a particular problem that felt that, okay, this is something that we need to solve, because more and more people we talk to that, okay, this is like nobody is really happy with the hiring solution that they were using. And it just sort of validated more and more that, okay, this is something that needs solving. We have one way in which we want, and we have one hypothesis that, okay, we want to solve it this way. And we were getting more and more validation, so that we said, okay, now if we have to do this, let's just do it like full time. And then once we did that, YC actually came into picture fairly quickly. So when we started, we didn't have any product. So we just talked to a few friends of ours who were founders and were looking to hire. And then once they said, okay, like just, okay, I can work with you and this is, you can work as like recruiter for my company and then find talent for me. And then what we did was we asked a bunch of our friends who were engineers, who were in tech industry, then, okay, why don't you do a screen share and show me connections and then tell me which ones are bad. And we did this exercise with like a lot of people. And then we ended up getting 2-3 hires, and then that actually built enough of a base of an idea to actually apply to YC with. So when we applied to YC, we had some revenue while we didn't have any product as such. So that sort of, and that was the main sort of thing that we went to, like the idea that, okay, we want to leverage this crowdsourced way of getting references and that way of recruitment. And there's some validation that, okay, we have done this without a product. There is a chance that we can do this at a larger scale if we end up getting time and money to actually build it out as well. So that's how YC happened. And post that, it was like, I think then the YC journey happened, and then there was a great experience. A lot of
Sorry
learning.
to stop you
Yeah.
here, but I don't know, like YC is really cool. A lot of ambitious startups have come in, like which have
Yeah.
really impacted the world. But generally, because now of course we are in that space, and a lot of friends are now also starting up, and especially in the early days, like there is also this thought in mind that whether you should raise from YC and go through that process versus raise from an institutional investor in India or outside, and take that money and build, right? So what was your framework to decide? Sometimes it's only for the sheer learning because they have a very, I would say, subjective and effective process to gauge your product, to gauge your business, and so on. So you get a lot of insights, you get a lot of learnings early hand from the industry leaders, right? But how did you make that decision of going to YC, going to apply to YC versus raising from any other institutional VC?
So I think for us, like the number one reason why we wanted to apply to YC was because we were going to build a B2B company, which and the initial users were going to be other startups itself.
So you get a pool of startups as an access.
And therein we get like a ready market, ready to adopt us. So you don't have that initial friction of how do I find initial customers.
Interesting.
So that's one aspect of what the framework was. And now, like for people now after that we went through it, there's actually a lot more along with it. So yes, number one for me, like I think, was the amount of distribution it provides as well. So like as a startup founder, I think like you sort of realize that, okay, idea or like what you're doing like does not matter. Like the first you have to think whatever you're building, like distribution is the first thing that you think of, and thereon like things sort of happen from there. So YC is actually very good at helping companies distribute as well. Like it can be within start. So for us, it was very easy. For example, they handled us in how to do like a product and launch, and then they put it through their social. So whenever like YC Twitter or LinkedIn handle sort of pushes your company material out, there is already like whenever it has done that for us, they will anyways get like 10-20 customers from there directly. So this is the kind of, so number one benefit I think is like for us was like the distribution it provides within network and outside network as well. And I would count that like visibility, etc., also within that distribution there, because you're a YC company, you're visible elsewhere as well. Like there's like certain PR, etc., also that happens. So that distribution, I think, was a big factor in the value that was given. Second, I think would be, yes, the sheer learning that happens within that process, which is things like, okay, accountability, like the certain frameworks that they help build that, okay, you are doing, there's an accountability framework to it. Like you commit to it within like there's like certain smaller groups of startups within that you commit, okay, next week I'm going to do this. And then the next week you have to go back and say that last week I said that I'm going to do this. Did I achieve this or not? And just that whenever there is like, for example, whenever you give like okay, I want to acquire, let's say I give the goal that, okay, I want to facilitate 100 more interviews. But the next thing that you would ask, like, what exactly does that mean? Does it lead to more revenue or not? And does it lead to high quality revenue? Does it lead to repeatable revenue or not? So there's like very simple, basic questions, but like it helps you focus on more important things. And within that goals, just reflecting and just making those goals better is something, and that framework itself is something that I think was a great value add. Along with that, there's like a lot of network that you can tap into in that they're in expertise level. And the third would be sort of the brand value that comes with it, which also I think has opened a lot of doors for us as well.
No, yeah, very interesting. And I mean, definitely, I've met a lot of founders who went with a certain idea in YC, and because of the sheer frameworks and the thinking axis, right, where you are questioned and you are pushed to actually, go deeper, people actually translate towards new idea altogether, which is also a great thing, right? And successful companies are built out of that approach. Talking about brand, but three top tips which you want to give to a developer right now to get hired since you are in that space, what would those be?
So like top, like basically tips for a developer to sort of optimize their hiring. Like one is treat it like don't look at, okay, like I'll apply one job and I'll see what happens. Treat it like a complete sales funnel wherein you have a lot of companies. Like treat it as like a complete process that every day you have dedicated your time. Okay, I'll have this amount of time and applying a lot of companies, and wherein you don't want to play just the volume game. You want to be thoughtful of like finding, okay, like I'll find the best person within that company organization and I'll actually try to. So that's one aspect of it, that treat it as something which is going to take a lot of time. So if you're doing it passively, I don't think you'll reach the best outcome. So what will end up happening is you'll get one offer, you'll not have anything else, and then you'll think, okay, like is this good? Not you'll end up making suboptimal decisions unless you're actively looking out, you're interviewing with a lot of people, and then build it out. And another part ends up being even like offer negotiating, right? Like for example, you have an offer, and then if you have like 3-4 other companies, right, and you can actually negotiate better as well. So that's number one tip. Second being that if you're early in your journey, don't be afraid of switching jobs. So I see a lot of people who would stay in the job just because it will look bad on a resume. So like the importance of resume is decreasing over time.
Skills actually matter. So
yes, skills matters. And the thing is that what exactly do you want to do? Like for example, like a lot of people would start off as like a front-end engineer, but they eventually realize, okay, I actually like back-end engineering more, or like infra work more. So just figuring that out is more important than optimizing on money initially, or optimizing that, okay, no, I don't know how it will look on my resume. It'll be like this person switches every 1 year. So that's fine early on. Like you want to find what you like, and then build like a deep expertise in that. And whatever it is, tech is such an industry wherein there is always going to be a lot of demand for highly specialized people, and there is a lot of specialties there. So you can develop a lot of depth of experience later on. Initially try on a few things, find out, okay, this is what I really love, now I figured it out. Then you can build out, okay, I'll stay in one company for a longer period, and then you would be rewarded for your skills as well. I think the third thing would be, don't be afraid of the interviewing process. So a lot of time, like this is a fairly daunting thing for so within interview process comes rejections as well. That once like the first rejection comes, like they think, okay, रहने दो अभी जो company में चल रहा है, like I don't really enjoy my work, I don't really enjoy the people that I work with, but I don't want to go through the process of preparing and doing DS algo sort of questions and then preparing for it and then getting rejected. So that is part of it. Like everyone goes through that. Just suck it up and like actually, and it's fine. Like you once you go through that initial 4-5, you have like, and if you treat it as a process, those rejections won't matter.
And I will add one more, which is don't ghost the recruiter, don't ghost the hiring manager just before the day of joining. Just be ethical.
Yeah, that's I think one, like, okay, yeah, so that is actually a hygiene thing. So what has happened as a result in the Indian sort of tech market ecosystem, which is very different from any other market, by the way, like within like, and so for example, within US, like traditionally it never happens that whenever someone signs an agreement, they say, oh no, I found another better offer, and on the day of joining they'll not join. So that
I've had people confirmed everything, signed everything, was able to join, just rejected the offer literally 12 hours before joining, right? So, I mean, and it really, really drains the shit out of anyone saying that, okay, you have worked so hard to close that funnel to, the hiring team has put so many efforts to ensure that the person is getting in, and this last moment thing happened. I personally feel it's okay to have choices and you should definitely go and optimize for the best one, but just being ethical is something which we should really, really highly rate. So if you could include a data point in your candidate assessment where you can probably have some metric to say, okay, this person keeps commitment. I don't know how, but that would be genuinely a big lever for any hiring manager in the industry, because that gives a lot of confidence.
Yeah, definitely. And like, for example, okay, so the part where I mentioned that, okay, you should try to get multiple offers, but that is at the stage of getting offers. You don't sign it and then say,
okay, yeah.
So you sign only one.
Yeah.
All the negotiation happens before signing that offer. And
Correct.
and that is actually one more point that like candidates tend to sort of consider that, okay, if I have to sign the offer within 2 days, because companies generally try to give me an answer within 2 days. So you can actually negotiate that to have it.
Correct. To have more time.
I'm going through three more companies. It'll process will probably finish in like 3 weeks. It'll take me 3 weeks to decide, and companies would be okay with that.
Yeah.
They would appreciate that, okay, you are not going
Being
to
upfront and being transparent.
that,
That
okay,
really helps. I've had
like,
people who have taken, such kind of extension in their decision, and it really worked well at the end. So valid, very valid point. Cool. Thank you, Amit. I think this has been a great time. A lot of key insights and a lot of learnings from your journey. I'm sure anyone who is starting up or is just a developer and looking to build out things would definitely benefit out of it. I will also post your product and your personal, contact in the description for anyone to reach out. All the very best to what you are doing and what you are building. All the best wishes to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav. This was really fun. Really enjoyed talking to you. And anyone watching, like, feel free to reach out if you need any help, any advice, etc.